Okay, welcome everybody. Nice to see you all here. So we we've been thinking about doing as we publicized a research conference for herbal medicine for next year. To my knowledge, we haven't really had a dedicated herbal medicine research conference. Sometimes we've presented at ARC. Forgive me if there's been one in the past before my time, but in my time, we've had a few speakers at ARC before, and we've also had called NCA or host conferences. There'll be a number of conferences that have mostly been cross-disciplinary, but I think that it's time that we have something that brings the focus to herbal medicine. Herbal medicine has a lot of its own needs and requirements, and I think that focus is really warranted. So I'm just going to give a few of my ideas about what I think we need in terms of our research community, and what we need, what that might inform for the conference. So it's a question of why have a conference at all. I think it's an interesting question because it's not one I've thought about over many years, because I used to organize the RCHM conference. And sometimes you can organize something that's very enjoyable on the day. People come and then they leave, and then it's over, and you have this idea of, well, it was nice to see, but what did it actually achieve? What happened with this conference? And I think what I'd like to do is have a conversation today about how we design a conference that is actually going to benefit us all and really help bring together all the different elements that make research actually have an impact. So I was thinking about the question, how do we benefit from research in our community in general? And there are lots of different ways to split this up. There's probably a whole pile more benefits in this, but these are just the things that occurred to me, and it'll be great to hear from all of you later on in the meeting what your ideas are. So I basically split it into what we do with research for practitioners, direct benefits to practitioners, what we use for PR, what we use to, say, influence institutions and government, and I've deliberately separated that out from PR. And then there's kind of some additional side benefits as well that sometimes I don't know if people really think about, and I wanted to highlight some of those today. So in terms of influencing government institutions, there's lots of different contexts where we might want to do this. Quite often it's using research to back up moves to get very specific aims. So for example, obviously we went for statutory regulation before. In the future, we may go for statutory regulation again. I don't know if it's on the table in the near future, but certainly in the medium and long term, I hope it will be. And it'd be good to be prepared for that and to know what kind of to have for that. So let me just here. Okay. Also, statutory regulation is not the only goal. So obviously, there's been some great successes within the NICE guidelines for acupuncture. Not really any, as far as I know, for herbal medicine. And I think that would be something which would be an amazing goal to have. I'm not sure how achievable it is, but it's an amazing goal that obviously research will contribute to. But also, we don't just have to think about NICE guidelines. I think there's lots of different areas, lots of different institutions and websites that are more of the official bent, which we can potentially get Chinese herbal medicine onto, or herbal medicine onto, or even the RCHM itself. So for example, I don't think it's called NHS Direct anymore because I just Googled it, but I think it's just the NHS website. On different conditions on the NHS website, they will sometimes link to other organizations that provide other kinds of therapies. So there's lots of different opportunities for us to use our research to influence different bodies to actually get those kind of recommendations. Obviously, there are always these kind of zeitgeist issues and campaigns going on, and if we can use our research to jump on those and to achieve other things, achieve good benefits for our community. Andrew's here. I think Andrew was part of our Chelsea Physic Garden Day on antimicrobial resistance, I believe, which was great. And it'll be interesting to hear about Andrew about his experience about that, how what we managed to achieve there. But there's a lot of these campaigns that are going on all the time, and of course, long COVID is a huge one. There's different years have different salient topics. Of course, we have NHS projects that we might want to become part of. I know the British Acupuncture Council at the moment has got an initiative in Gloucestershire with ear acupuncture, which has been very successful. And these things come up from time to time, and being ready with the appropriate research and information to provide is really important. And then also, we might want funding for our own initiatives. I think there's a lot of things that we can initiatives that we generate that we can apply for funding for, and often we need research to back those up. So these are just some ideas about how we might use research for government institutions. There's far more than this, but this is just some ideas. Then there's PR, and I've deliberately separated out PR because I think that one of the mistakes sometimes we can make is thinking that we have to have the most rigorous research before we can actually achieve anything. And I think that all sorts of research can really influence. And when we and then on the other hand, when we're trying to influence the public, research alone sometimes isn't convincing. However, I think research in context, when we've got a good PR campaign backed up by research, is incredibly strong. And that's what we've been doing with our Getting to the Root campaigns. Of course, our research can actually get positive stories in the media if we start to establish the right contacts. It can certainly help us respond to negative press in the media. And this is something that did happen this year, which is a fantastic story. There was a report in the Daily Mail reporting on a piece of research about congenital malformations in pregnancy. Many of you may have heard about this. And we issued this was a piece of research that was produced in China, and it was asserting that there were serious concerns about the use of Chinese herbal medicines in pregnancy and their link to congenital malformations. And we, Helen and I, response from the RCHM, we reached out to prominent people in our research community, including Trina Ward, Trevor Wing, Lily Lai. If I'm forgetting anyone, forgive me. And we got really good quotes. They looked through the paper and found, some serious flaws in this paper. And we wrote a really good press release. We put that press release out, not really knowing what would happen to it. And very interestingly, the Chinese community found it. The Chinese community was already incensed by this paper that had come out. They were very unhappy about it, the Chinese nationality, Chinese medical community. And they took our press release because it had Western academics, and it was written quite professionally. They took that and they used that. We don't know exactly what happened, but they used that to pressure the authors of the study to retract the study. Now, this is very unusual. I've never heard of this before. But anyway, the study got retracted, and then those Chinese professionals, they actually wrote another piece, a kind of narrative about what happened, and it's been published. So my point here really is that when we have a high caliber academic community and we do issue these kind of responses, if we're tied up, if we're connected to the wider community, we can actually have greater impact. And this is going to be the theme of what I really want to talk about today. So one of the things that having our research does is that we put the practitioner front and center, because most other herbal medicine research, which is outside the practitioner community, is very much about the herbs themselves, or even active ingredients. And it could be used for, say, drug discovery and really taking it away from the practitioner. So it's only really when we do research that we bring the practitioner front and center. And so that's really, really key. And that's really key message to the public and the media as well. Of course, if we have research, we can give that research to RCHM members for their individual marketing. And we can also use it to promote the high standards community. So we can really show what a high standard our community is, the caliber of our members, but also to make the case that the public should be seeing practitioners with high standards. So it's not just research. Obviously, it's not just useful looking outwards. It's also useful inherently for our members. Of course, research can help people to become better practitioners. One thing that a lot of people are not that aware of is that some of the research that we do, particularly now, I could highlight the research that Tony Booker is doing, funded by the BHMA and EHTPA, testing some of our herb supply. This actually goes to show that we're part of a community that takes herbal safety seriously. And these kinds of things, these kinds of actions could be brought up within the legal defense if anyone is accused of negligence, because of all the responsible actions that we take, and research plays into that. It can actually strengthen our legal defense as practitioners, particularly if you are an RCHM member. Obviously, it can enhance the inherent safety, and we can raise awareness of issues as well, which is really important. It can expand our horizons, and one of my teachers, long-time teachers, is Volker Scheid, and he'd definitely want me to mention the humanities here, because they often get underemphasized. He ran the East Medicine Conference for many years, and he's been a strong advocate for research in the humanities, and that feeding back into our understanding of our medicine. So, his conferences, he's had historians of Chinese medicine, anthropology. All of these things are incredibly important for us to understand our own medicine. And also, of course, when our practitioners are doing research, they gain credentials, and those credentials carry weight in all sorts of arenas. Just the last point is the kind of what I would call side benefits, but I don't really like that term because these are really, really crucially important. And it's something that I'm constantly aware of in the RCHM, is our continuity into the future. We have an incredibly high caliber community, really, really high caliber. But I think what many people might not see is how much the running of the RCHM and the HTPA absolutely relies on very, very highly trained academics and experts. As I say, Tony Booker's in this room. We've got the two Tonys, Tony Harrison, Chris Etheridge in the EHTPA. We just have a whole host of people. But when we were issuing that response to the press release, we had lots of people to draw on. But we need new generations coming into research, replenishing that stock effectively. Because if we don't have these very, very highly trained experts within our community, we can't credibly self-regulate. And if we can't credibly self-regulate and also communicate well to government organizations like the MHRA and DHSC, then we can't secure the future, and we can't have a voice in our future of the medicine. So this is incredibly important that we encourage people into research. And this can be one of the functions of the conference. Of course, doing research enables us to network across disciplines within the UK, create valuable connections that can push things forward, and also we can network around the world. So we have connections to hospitals in Taiwan and in Switzerland and all across Europe, in the US, Australia. All of these connections strengthen us. I was just chatting to Lara, and she was talking about the evidence-based acupuncture, and we've got Mel Hopper-Koppelman. Forgetting where she's from. She's not from the UK. Where is she from, Laura? Is it America or Australia?
Yeah, she's from the States.
She's from the States, right? Okay, and this is an amazing example of our global networking. So, and one of the problems that we can have in the research community is kind of everyone is reinventing the wheel. And if we don't have those links, if we don't have those connections, we don't realize that someone in another country is doing the work that we really need. We don't have to reproduce it. We can just take their work. And so these global networks are really important. And just generally facilitating collaboration, it's actually something that can help us come together as one community with all the divisions that we have. Research is not, coming together to help each other with research is generally, controversy free. We're just all working in the same direction. And one thing I really want to see happen is, this is an RCHM meeting today, but one of the things I really want to see happen is to bring in the wider Chinese medicine community, more organizations within the Chinese community, and certainly more of the Chinese nationality community, or the East Asian community, let's say, because they're all over East Asia. We have many great professionals and academics in the UK, and I think that we should be tied up through research. So I hope that this conference goes out wider as we go on. Okay, so there are all these benefits to research. And there's a good question of, like, if we're doing a conference, who are we? So there's a lot of people that use research in this kind of chain, right? So from the academics to the colleges and supervisors who are, and university professors and supervisors who are bringing people up into research, generating the research. But we also have, obviously, our practitioners who need the research, or it's being done on behalf of them, or we need the practitioners to partake in the research. We have students on the courses. Then we've got the professional associations who are using the research and need it for all sorts of ends, like PR, for example, and our PR offices. And then we have the whole regulatory sector that needs the expertise in the research community in all sorts of ways as well. And then we all have our journals. So we have this kind of ecosystem. And one of the questions I have, well, I have three questions, is, do we communicate enough? All of these groups, do we communicate enough? Are there enough of us in the first place? Are there, enough researchers? Now, we do have within the RCHM, and then expanding out to, the BACSI and other organizations, we have quite a huge number of really high caliber researchers, which is really great. But I think we have to keep our eye, really have our eye on the future, keep bringing new people into research. And I have to thank NCA for example for their constant work in bringing new people up. Also there's Tony Brooker at Westminster, Andrew Flowers here as well. There's a number of people who've been working really hard to bring more and more generations up into research and actually generating the future research community, because while we have many people we can rely on now, will we have in the future? So that's a really important aspect of this, and a research conference can help with that. And then the last one is, do we have a strategy? And I think that this is quite a key point. I attended a meeting for the Research Council of Complementary Medicine, and the whole topic that they were talking about was developing a research strategy. And it was very interesting. They were very focused on, how do you get to a double-blind randomized controlled trial, and all the steps that you need to get there. Now, I'm not sure that's necessarily our focus to get to that. Might be, we have to discuss that, but I think the general idea of actually having a strategy, what do we want? What's the goal that we want? So for example, I mentioned NICE guidelines. One goal could be, I'm not saying it is, but one goal could be targeting one NICE guidelines that's under review, generating and collating research that we can actually make a big push to maybe get ourselves in it, for example. It's just one idea. And I think that what we can possibly do a bit better with this communication between us is develop a strategy and be very targeted, so that we can tie up end to end the purpose of the research and the kind of generation of the research. So people who have an idea on one end of what might be necessary for research in terms of our overall strategy can communicate with the people who are looking for a topic to do in their research, and that can be students. Students are, particularly at the NCA, they'll be looking, they'll be wanting to know what would be a good research project to do. But if we have more communication between all the people on this list, we can actually say, look, you might be interested in doing this, but the community needs this, and that's a really useful thing to communicate. So these three questions, really, I think we can use a conference as a focal point to try and solve these questions. Now, the conference in and of itself won't necessarily solve them, but I think the whole process around having an annual conference and having regular meetings to organize the conference, where we can discuss research and different people in our community can come together, we can start to get to know, connect things up a little bit more and get to know what the research community needs and who's looking to do research, and connect these people up. And there's also other kind of beneficial connections. I remember talking to Merlin at Southampton. He was saying how difficult sometimes it is for recruiting practitioners sometimes for subjects for research. And so, when we're communicating better, we've got more of a focal point. We can actually connect people up for actually making research work with better recruitment, for example. What's the plan? The plan today, I'd like us to have a nice informal chat about what our goals are, what we want from a conference. And then after this, we're going to have a number of Zoom meetings to plan the conference. Now, this conference, we're going to do basically on a voluntary basis for free. It's going to be a free conference to attend. And it's going to be online. So but I think that it's absolutely achievable. And we're going to plan it through a number of meetings throughout the year. The first one, we've set a date already just to get things moving, be Monday, 11th December, 1 to 2 p.m. on Zoom. If you are interested in helping out planning the conference and you can't make this meeting, don't worry, we're going to have more. It's just we wanted to have a date to tell you right now to show you that things are moving forward. But next year, we'll have 3 to 4 more planning meetings. What I'd like is to encourage some volunteers onto a committee to help plan it. I don't think it will take a lot of work. We're talking about coming up with I think that there's a lot of people that are engaged in research now. They're either currently conducting research, just publishing, or recently published. I don't think our problem is going to be having enough people volunteering to actually speak and present research. And then if we extend that around the globe, that's a huge number of people. What I would personally like in this conference is that we have some discussion sessions. So it's not just a passive listening to the research, but it's interspersed with some discussion so we can facilitate that communication and we can strategize and we can all come together and plan the next year effectively, or the next few years. The conference, we're looking tentatively at November next year. I haven't got a date yet, but we'll get that in the calendar soon. Probably something like one Sunday in November. And then after that, the future will be, hopefully we'll have an annual conference. Who knows where it will go in the future, whether it will be online or in person, but we just want to prove the concept this year. But what will happen is we'll continue to have these regular meetings where the research community can come together. There might be a core planning team, but anyone from the research community can come in and out of these meetings and relay what they want and what they need. And perhaps even to have some kind of forum. We can talk about it, something that we can talk about in the future, but for example, do we want a dedicated herbal research Facebook group, for example? That could work quite well. I'm just putting that out there, but there are lots of things that we can do to help facilitate that communication. So that's the basic idea. Today, I want to have a discussion about what are our goals as our community? What do we want to achieve? Particularly things that we can achieve and supported by research. Relate to that are what areas and types of research do we need more of? And the third one, what do we want from a research conference? So those are some basic questions. Now, if we had a lot of us, I would split into small groups, but actually I think that we could have a chat just as we are, because it's not so many of us. For people watching at home, I'm going to stop the recording now so that we can have a free chat. But if you are interested in this, please drop me a line at alexjacobs.ceo@rchm.co.uk and come and join in.